Hey everybody, this is Francesco Abbruzzino, and we're here today with Megan Cyrulewski. Did I mess up your last name, Megan?
Yeah, it's okay. It's Cyrulewski. It doesn't look anything like it.
I gave the old college try. Well, she's coming out with a new book on August 2nd. It's called Who Am I? How My Daughter Taught Me to Go and Live Again. And it's about a journey into postpartum depression, anxiety disorder, panic attacks, stays in a psych ward, divorce, domestic violence, law school, how she managed to get through all that, finish law school, and emerge with a beautiful little girl that she now has, which is, your daughter's what, 3 years old, Meg?
Yeah, she's about 3.5.
3.5.
So, yeah, her birthday's in December.
So tell us a little bit. What was the drive and ambition behind the story? It sounds like you've had quite the pathway to, quite the journey towards writing this book.
Yeah, it started out as I really didn't know what else to do because I graduated law school and I took the bar in Michigan and I missed passing it by like 10 points.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and I honestly didn't know if I wanted to take it again so soon, like right after. So all my friends were like, you know what, you're a good writer. Why don't you write down everything that happened to you in the last 3 years? So I thought, well, all right, I'll do that. And, I wrote it and I was like, well, okay, I wrote it, so let me send it out. And, after like 20 or 30 rejection letters, Black Opal Books finally, contacted me and offered me a contract, and it's kind of been taken off since there.
Well, that's great. Now, tell us a little, with this book, give us some background on why you chose to write a memoir. And I know you just said because, the lawyer thing and stuff, but what was there more of a driving force behind that?
There was, and I discovered that during, my time in the hospital and while I was going through everything, there's definitely two messages that are very important for me to get out with my book. One of them is postpartum depression, because there's still kind of a stigma about postpartum depression. Women are too embarrassed to admit that they have it, or they don't want to seek help for it. I was in the mental health ward because mine was so bad, and I knew I needed to find a treatment right away so I could get back and take care of my daughter. And the second one was, my second message is about domestic violence, and not physical, really, but emotional, and that doesn't really get talked about a lot. And I didn't even know that I was in a domestic violence, emotionally abusive marriage until I was in the hospital and in group therapy, and 10 strangers told me, you need to get out, you're being emotionally abused. So those are the two messages that I definitely want people to get across from reading my book.
And I think that's a valid point about that. A lot of people are in verbally abusive relationships, and they don't realize it.
No, exactly. Growing up, my parents, who've been married for, 40 years, I never really saw them argue very much, but I know it's because my dad's like me, and we don't like confrontation. So, when I got into my marriage, I already knew that my ex-husband, he had anger issues, but I thought, okay, well, we can work on those, No, it's more than that. It's way more than that. It's name-calling. It's putting you down. It's constantly, making you feel like you're worthless. You're ashamed of yourself. And, a lot of people don't realize that is verbally and emotionally abusive.
So does your book help a person that possibly is going through postpartum or is mentally abused?
Yeah.
Does it help them to get a better understanding of how to cope with it and continue their journey through life?
Yeah, definitely. Because I definitely wanted to get that through. And I have, almost a whole chapter designated to both issues. So when I talk about postpartum in my book, I talk about going to the mental health ward and how scary it was for me because I thought, what, I'm not crazy. Why am I here? And it's not, going to the mental health ward shouldn't even be a stigma in today's society because, a lot of people have mental illnesses and, need to seek treatment for it. And, seeking treatment for something like postpartum depression, there's nothing wrong with it. Nothing at all. So, and again, I also have another chapter on, looking for the signs of emotional abuse. And I quote from a really good book by Eleanor Payson, a therapist who deals in emotional abuse and domestic violence relationships, and I have a lot of signs and I give a lot of examples that happen throughout my life to kind of help the reader might realize, wow, I know someone, or I am in this relationship and I need to get out.
Okay, and do you go through any steps or processes that they may want to take to try to you give the processes for recognizing it? Do you give any processes for trying to get out of it or try to cope with it? Or I would.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely, my whole journey, my book starts, obviously when I met my ex, and it, ends when I finally was free of him, like free of the marriage, free of, the child custody battle and everything. But I do detail my journey along the way and the bumps that I went, and, the treatment that I had, the therapy that I had, how it was difficult for me for the first year, to realize that I'm not worthless, and that I somebody will marry me again if I want, because he always used to tell me, no one else is ever going to marry me. So, I definitely, someone that is maybe in that kind of relationship will definitely read about my journey and the steps that I took and how difficult it was. And it is difficult to get out, but if you're in that relationship, you need to definitely get out.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned being in the psych ward, which I can't imagine, but and you sort of said that one of your motivations for getting out was getting back with your daughter. And how has she helped to change your life and help you to cope with some of these issues?
Yeah, people have asked me, they're like, do you regret marrying your ex? And I always say no, because without him, I wouldn't have had Madeline, my daughter. And she is really the driving force that got me out of that marriage. Because even though I had postpartum depression, I knew that I needed to keep my daughter protected. And so, when it came down to it, I had to choose between my marriage and my daughter, and that's not a choice. Right. Obviously, right. She could not grow up in that environment and around that person. And it's so I moved out and I moved in with my parents and took it from there.
So is it safe to assume it was a pretty nasty divorce then?
It was, and it didn't have to be, because he gave up his joint custody rights almost immediately.
Wow, see, I would never do that as a father.
Yeah. Exactly, and it that was my biggest struggle, I think, for the 3 years, because I was like, how can you give up joint custody? I mean, she was 4 months old when he told me he didn't want joint custody, and it shocked me.
Wow, that was one of the first moves he did, huh?
Yeah,
that's a shame.
Yeah, and because divorce, okay, but I've never, from the very beginning, I told him, I'm like, you know what, you need to be a part of your daughter's life. You're her father, no matter what happens between us. And for some reason, he didn't believe that, and he did drastic things and took drastic measures, and it really didn't need to be as ugly as he made it. But
wow.
He was using Madeline to get back at me, and that was obviously not. I wasn't going to stand for that.
Okay, so let me ask you this: What do you hope that any of the readers that hopefully some of the listeners will buy your book, and if they read it, what do you hope they will take away from it? Obviously, dealing with these different situations, is there anything else you'd like for them to take away with it?
I would like people to realize that, I felt, I guess, trapped in my marriage because, after a year of marriage, I kind of realized this was not going to work, and I felt trapped, but I didn't want to leave because I thought I was going to let my friends down, my family down. So I stayed in a marriage that I probably shouldn't have stayed in, and, it's like, you don't want to go down the divorce road, but, honestly, it's like if that's the solution for you to get out of a relationship like that, then it's okay. And, people are going to judge you, and a lot of people judged me, some people even from my family. And after a while, I had to brush it off and be like, you know what, you're going to think what you want to think, and that's fine. But I know I had to do what was right for me and what was right for Madeline.
All right. And now I see your book comes out in less than a month, but I see you're actively on a blog there. What are you trying to communicate with that blog? Is it is it something along the same lines as what the book is all about?
Yeah, well, my book comes out August 2nd. I started my blog actually the end of November, And at first, I was just writing kind of like little anecdotes from my life and stories about Madeline. And I was like, you know what? I don't know if I'm that interesting that people are going to want to look at my blog all the time. So I started a series called Authors Supporting Authors on my blog, and every day I feature a new author. Yeah, like an indie author, one that's been published. Anyone that contacts me through my website, I've never turned it on.
You there, Megan? I think we're having a disconnect. Megan? Sometimes that's how these interviews go. Hopefully Megan can call us back, and we'll continue on with this inspirational story. This is pretty interesting, though, where she lists all these separate books of individuals, and she basically supports them, gives the information out there where you can go. So, if anything, it'd be worth visiting her blog just to get that information. Let me see if I can call her back real quick on here. As she said, her book comes out. Megan? Okay, she must be having some little issues over there. Let me give you... There she is. Hey, Megan.
Hey, we lost each other.
Yeah, I was trying to carry the conversation. I'm like, hopefully she's going to call back in.
Yeah.
I think I lost you after I asked that last question, and I don't even remember what it was. Do you?
Yeah, about my blog.
Okay, about your blog. That's right. And I started going through it and telling people about the different authors that you're supporting, if you want to pick up from there.
Okay, yeah. No, I usually put like kind of a call out for authors every month on a bunch of Facebook groups, and I just say, you know what? I get, I market really hard right now, so I have really, it comes across as bragging, and I'm not. I swear I'm not. But I get about anywhere from right now like 700 to about 1,000 visitors to my site every day, wow. And because I market a lot, So and one of the reasons is because I put a lot of these authors on my blog, and people really, I've had a lot of people email me and say thank you for introducing these new authors, and I love doing it. So yeah, so if any of your listeners are authors or, they want, some exposure and some marketing, please contact me through my website, and I will be happy to feature you on my blog.
Yeah, and I see you just got a ton. Now, are those authors that are over to the right of your blog where you have the different names going down there?
Yeah, I think since I started my series at the end of December, I have interviewed maybe like 120 or something. So, yeah, there's a lot on there.
Oh, that's great. Okay. Now, so you have that. You have some of your past interviews. You have about the book. Now, with the book, are you currently working on anything new after this book comes out on the 2nd? Do you have anything in the works?
Yeah. I am. I'm working on a criminal, like a crime fiction, sort of like a John Grisham book, and that ties back to my, my law school days because there's so many nuances and loopholes in the law, and I guess while everyone else in law school was taking notes, I was actually thinking, wow, this would make a really good book, which might why I didn't pass the bar. I don't know. So now I'm going back to those notes that I took in class about what would be a good story and kind of, putting those down into plot. So hopefully I'll have my first crime fiction book out next year.
So it sounds like you're going to stay on this road of just writing books and enjoying the good life and blogging about the other authors out there. Is that right?
Yeah, I am using my law degree in that I just finished a training to become a domestic relations mediator. And so hopefully I'm going to open up my mediation practice probably at the beginning of next year. I want to get a little more, observations under my belt before I do that. But yeah, so if I can do part-time mediation, part-time writing, and infuse that into full-time, that would be living the good life.
Great. Well, we wish you the best of luck. Now, why don't we do this? Go ahead and tell everybody where your website is. While you were talking, I've had your Facebook and your webpage up, going back and forth between the two. And your webpage is at the bottom. When I send out a communication to all my Facebook pages and YouTube and everything, I'll include all those addresses. But why don't you go ahead and give it out so that they have some verbal, hear you say it out there.
Yeah, great. You can find my website. It's www.meganCyrulewski.com. And on there you can find all my links to Facebook, to Twitter, to LinkedIn. My blog's on there. How to contact me is on there. Like, everything is pretty much on there.
Okay. And do you check your Facebook a lot of times?
I do, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, what we're going to do is Megan's book comes out on the 2nd. I've asked her to remind me in case I forget, but I'll send this interview out again on the 2nd when your book's released. If you want to send me a link to the Amazon or whoever is carrying it for you.
Yeah.
And we'll get that out there. And it was great meeting you. I like what you're doing with that blog. And I'm glad that you overcame a lot of these obstacles because
Thank you.
That's great. And a lot of people would have just given up. They would have turned to the drugs, and their life would have been basically written off. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
So,
right.
You're an inspiration.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, it was great talking to you, Megan, and best of luck. And stay in touch with me, okay?
Definitely. Thank you for having me on today. I loved our conversation.
All right. Thank you, Meg. All right,
Thanks. Bye-bye.